The rain fell on Seattle in a relentless, gray sheet, blurring the sharp edges of the skyscrapers and turning the city into a watercolor of melancholy. Inside his meticulously clean, yet soulless, apartment, Leo Vance stared at the blinking cursor on his screen. It was a cursor that had witnessed the birth of 1,000 marketing campaigns, but was currently failing to conjure a single compelling sentence for a new brand of artisanal coffee. He was 30 years old today, and the universe, it seemed, had decided to mark the occasion with a cosmic shrug of damp indifference. His phone buzzed, a stark vibration against the polished teak of his desk. It wasn't the generic happy birthday from a social media alert or his well-meaning but distant parents. It was a specific jarring tone he'd assigned to one person a decade ago. Mia. The message was simple, deceptively so. Mia, so. It's today. The day. Do you think the statute of limitations on a pact made with cheap champagne has expired? Leo's breath caught. He hadn't forgotten. How could he? The memory was etched into his mind with the clarity of a high-definition film he replayed more often than he'd ever admit. It was the night of their college graduation. The air was thick with the scent of blooming jasmine and the frantic, fearful energy of impending adulthood. They were in her messy dorm room, surrounded by half-packed boxes and the ghosts of 4 unforgettable years. Mia, with her paint-streaked jeans and eyes that saw the world in shades of emotion he could only guess at, had been crying. A bad breakup with a boyfriend Leo never thought was good enough for her. He, in turn, had just accepted a corporate job in a city far from the art scene he secretly dreamed of. "We can't end up alone, Leo," she had said, her voice thick with tears and cheap champagne. "Promise me. If we're both single at 30, we marry each other. We're best friends. That's more than most people start with, right?" It had felt romantic and tragic and wildly funny all at once. The marriage pact, he'd declared, raising his plastic flute. A foolproof insurance policy against spinsterhood and bachelorhood. They'd laughed, clinked glasses, and sealed the deal with a hug that had lasted a beat too long. A hug that held all the words they'd never been brave enough to say. And now, a decade later, the policy had come due. He typed back, his fingers clumsy. "Leo, I believe the terms and conditions, as ratified under the influence of Dom Perignon's less illustrious cousin, are legally binding. We're lawyers now, in the court of our own poor life choices." "Mia, I'm an artist, you're a corporate sellout. The closest you get to law is the fine print on a marketing contract. So what's the verdict? Are we doing this?" Leo stared at the message. "Are we doing this?" It was so quintessentially Mia. Direct, unflinching, hurtling towards the absurd with the momentum of a freight train. He thought of his life, the orderly silence of his apartment, the calculated success of his career, the series of pleasant, uncomplicated relationships that never quite touched the sides of his soul. He thought of Mia, a whirlwind of color and chaos, her Brooklyn studio apartment undoubtedly a glorious mess, her life a vibrant, unpredictable canvas. "Leo, a pact is a pact. But maybe we should discuss the merger over something stronger than champagne. Dinner? Tomorrow? You pick the place." "Mia, Angelo S. 7 p.m. Don't wear a suit." Angelo's. The little Italian place with the checkered tablecloths and the grumpy, kind-hearted owner who had fed them pasta when they were broke students. Of course she'd pick Angelo's. It was a deliberate callback, a tactical strike straight to his nostalgia. He put his phone down, the cursor on his screen forgotten. The rain continued its symphony against the windowpane, but for the first time that day, Leo didn't feel the crushing weight of his own meticulously constructed life. He felt terrified and exhilarated, and for reasons he couldn't quite name, more alive than he had in 10 years. Mia Finch stood before the large canvas in her sun-drenched Brooklyn studio, a critical frown on her face. The painting was a riot of conflicting colors and aggressive brushstrokes. It was supposed to be about liberation, about the fierce joy of being 30 and free. Instead, it looked angry, confused. Her phone lay face up on the paint-splattered floor, Leo's last message glowing on the screen. "A pact is a pact." She'd been the one to bring it up, of course. She was always the one to charge headfirst into the emotional fray. It was easier that way. Better to treat it like a joke, a grand, hilarious adventure, than to admit that the idea had lived in the quiet, secret chambers of her heart for a decade. Leo Vance. Her Leo. With his perpetually worried brow, his dry wit that could disarm her in seconds, and a steadiness that had been her anchor through every storm of her tumultuous 20s. He was the one who had held her hair back when she was sick, who had told her her art was brilliant when every gallery in the city had rejected her, who knew the lyrics to every terrible 90s pop song she loved. And she had loved him. Fiercely, complicatedly, and entirely. But the timing was never right. He was with someone, she was with someone, they were graduating, they were moving to different cities. The words, "I love you," in that way had always felt like a grenade that could shatter the perfect, beautiful thing they had. So she'd buried the feeling, letting it manifest only in the safety of a drunken pact. Now, he was a successful marketing executive in Seattle, all sharp suits and sharper PowerPoint presentations. She was a moderately successful artist in New York, her life a beautiful catastrophe of deadlines, vernissages, and emotional upheavals. They talked every week, their friendship a constant, comforting thread through the tapestry of their separate lives. But it was a friendship that existed in a carefully maintained past and present. This pact was a violent, glorious shove into the future. Her best friend, Chloe, burst into the studio, holding a bag of bagels. "Okay, talk. You've been weird all morning. Is it the gallery thing? Did they hate the new pieces?" Mia gestured to her phone. "It's Leo. The pact. I invoked it." Chloe's eyes widened and a bagel fell from the bag, landing cream cheese side down on the floor. "You did not. Mia. The marriage pact? That was a joke. A cute drunk story you tell at parties. Was it?" Mia asked softly, picking up a brush and dabbing at a particularly harsh red on the canvas. "What if it was the only way we were ever going to be brave enough?" Brave? This is insane. You can't marry someone because of a 10-year-old promise. Marriage is about love and passion and end. And what if it's there? Mia interrupted, her voice barely a whisper. What if it's always been there, and we were just too scared to look? Chloe stared at her, the reality of the situation dawning. "Oh my God. You're serious. You're actually in love with him." Mia didn't deny it. She just kept smudging the red, trying to soften its edges. "We're having dinner at Angelo's tomorrow. To discuss the terms." "This isn't a business deal, Mia. This is your life." Chloe knelt, rescuing the bagel. "What are you going to do? Show up with a prenup?" A slow smile spread across Mia's face. "No. I'm going to show up and see if my best friend is the love of my life. And I'm going to find out if he's brave enough to see it, too." Angelo's hadn't changed. The same red checkered tablecloths, the same faint smell of garlic and yeast, the same photo of a young, smiling Angelo with a famous actor from the 80s hanging crookedly by the door. Leo arrived at 6:55 p.m., having deliberately not worn a suit. He'd chosen dark jeans and a simple, well-fitting sweater, feeling both underdressed and overly conscious of his appearance. She was already there. Mia sat at their usual corner table, bathed in the warm golden light of the faux Tuscan wall sconce. She was staring out the window, a glass of red wine in her hand. Her hair was shorter than the last time he'd seen her, a dark chic bob that highlighted the elegant line of her neck. She wore a simple black dress and a single silver bracelet that caught the light. She looked beautiful, not in the familiar, comfortable way of his best friend, but in a way that made his heart perform a complicated, arrhythmic thump against his ribs. He slid into the seat opposite her. "You're early." She turned and her face broke into the same wide, unreserved smile he'd known for half his life. "You're on time. Which for you is basically late. I already ordered you a beer." There it was. The ease. The history. It settled around them like a warm blanket. For the first hour it was just like any of their other reunions. They fell into their old rhythm. A well-rehearsed dance of shared jokes, familiar teasing and rapid-fire updates. She told him about her upcoming solo show, the nightmare of shipping her paintings, her ongoing battle with her landlord about the leaky skylight. He told her about the artisanal coffee crisis, his recent amicable breakup with Sarah, a graphic designer who was, in Mia's words, nice but beige, and his mother's new obsession with breeding orchids. They ate Angelo's famous lasagna, and the conversation was so normal, so perfectly them, that the elephant in the room started to feel like a cherished, if slightly absurd, pet. Finally, as the plates were cleared and a second round of drinks was placed before them, Mia leaned forward, her smile softening. So, the pact. Leo took a long swallow of his beer. The pact. We're both single. We're both 30. The conditions have been met. Her tone was light, but her eyes were serious, searching his. Mia, be serious for a second, he said, his voice lower than he intended. This is madness. We live in different cities. We have completely different lives. You thrive on chaos. I alphabetize my spices. She laughed, a sound that warmed him from the inside out. I know you do, you beautiful, meticulous weirdo. But that's why it works. We balance each other out. You ground me. What do I do for you? You color outside the lines, he said without hesitation. You make me see a world I'm too busy organizing to actually experience. The air between them crackled. The playful banter was gone, replaced by a raw, unnerving honesty. What if it's the best decision we ever make, Leo? She whispered. What if we've been so busy looking for the right person in the wrong places, that we missed the person who was right there all along? He looked at her, really looked at her. He saw the girl who had stolen his fries in the cafeteria and the woman who had fiercely defended her artistic vision to a condescending critic. He saw his best friend, and in a dizzying, terrifying, glorious moment, he saw his future. What are you proposing, Finch? A real marriage? I'm proposing an experiment, she said, her eyes gleaming. A year. We get married. We give it one real, honest, messy year. We move in together. Compromise on a city, I don't care which. We try. Really try. And if at the end of it... She paused, taking a shaky breath. If at the end of it was a disaster, we walk away with no regrets. Our friendship intact. Pact fulfilled, honor satisfied. It was the most insane thing he had ever heard. It was a gamble with the most valuable thing in his life, his friendship with her. But the alternative, letting this moment pass, watching her walk out of Angelo's and back into a life without him in it every day, felt infinitely more terrifying. He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. Her fingers were cold. He could feel the faint tremor in them. 1 year, he said, his voice firm. A real proper try. A brilliant, breathtaking smile lit up her face. Really? Really? He squeezed her hand. But my spices stay alphabetized. Deal, she laughed, a sound of pure, unadulterated joy. We'll get a place with a big walk-in pantry for your issues. The wedding was a small, simple affair in a city park, a neutral territory between Seattle and New York. It was attended by a handful of baffled but supportive friends and family. Chloe was Mia's maid of honor, shooting Leo looks that promised creative and painful retribution if he hurt her friend. Leo's older brother, Mark, was his best man, clapping him on the back with a whispered, "You've always been the crazy one." They found a loft apartment in Chicago, a city that was new to both of them, a blank slate. It was a compromise. Big enough for Mia to have a proper studio space with northern light, and modern enough for Leo to appreciate the efficient appliances and built-in shelving. The first few months were a honeymoon period, not of romantic bliss, but of domestic novelty. It was fun playing house. They bought furniture together, arguing playfully over mid-century modern versus bohemian eclectic. They ended up with a confusing but charming mix. They explored the city, finding their new favorite coffee shop and a dive bar with a great jukebox. They fell into a comfortable routine. Leo would leave for his new, remote marketing job at 8 a.m., and Mia would retreat to her studio, emerging hours later, splattered with paint and buzzing with creative energy. Their friendship was the bedrock, and it made the transition surprisingly smooth. They knew each other's quirks, each other's histories. They could make each other laugh until they cried. In many ways, it was perfect. But beneath the surface, a quiet tension began to grow. It was the tension of the unspoken, of the real proper try that felt at times like a performance. Leo, ever the planner, tried to manage the marriage. He scheduled date nights Tuesdays and Saturdays. He researched communication techniques and conflict resolution strategies. He was trying to build a successful partnership, the way he would build a successful marketing campaign. Mia, meanwhile, waited for the spark. She waited for the grand romantic gesture, the passionate declaration, the moment when the careful boundary of their friendship would finally combust into something more. She'd find herself looking at him across the dinner table, her heart aching with a love that felt both old and terrifyingly new, willing him to see it, to feel it, to break the script. One Tuesday night, during a scheduled romantic movie night, the fissures finally cracked open. He had made a perfect cheese board. The wine was decanted. A critically acclaimed French film was queued up on the screen. Mia, feeling stifled by the perfection of it all, was scrolling through her phone, a knot of frustration in her stomach. "You're not watching," Leo said gently, pausing the film. "I'm sorry," she sighed, putting her phone down. "It's just, do we have to be so scheduled, Leo? Is our romance another item on your to-do list? Tuesday, emotional intimacy, 7 to 9 p.m.? He flinched as if slapped. "I'm just trying. I'm trying to make sure we do this right. I don't want to fail. This isn't a project you can manage into success," she cried, standing up and pacing the length of the loft. "You can't Gantt chart your way into love. Where's the mess, Leo? Where's the spontaneity? Where's the passion?" The word hung in the air between them, large and undeniable. "Passion," he repeated, his voice quiet. "Is that what this is missing? You want passion?" "I want you to look at me like you want me," she said, her voice breaking. "Not like I'm your best friend who you have a very amicable domestic arrangement with. I'm your wife." He stood up, his own frustration finally boiling over. "What do you want from me, Mia? I'm here. I married you. I left my life for this. I'm trying to build a stable, secure foundation for us. Is that not enough? Do I have to be some brooding artist, fueled by chaos and drama, to be worthy of your passion?" "It's not about being an artist. It's about being real," she shot back, tears in her eyes now. "You keep everything in such perfect order, including your feelings. I feel like I'm living with a beautifully designed robot sometimes." The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. She saw the hurt flash in his eyes, a deep, profound wound. "Is that what you see?" he asked, his voice dangerously calm. "A robot?" He took a step towards her, and for the first time, she saw a crack in his impeccable composure. A raw, hot anger. "You think I don't feel? You think this is easy for me? Every day I am terrified, Mia. Terrified that I'm going to ruin the one pure, good thing I've ever had. So yes, I cling to schedules and order because the alternative, feeling everything I feel for you, is absolutely fucking terrifying." He was breathing heavily, his hands clenched at his sides. The air was electric. Mia stood frozen, seeing him, truly seeing him, not as her steady, unflappable friend, but as a man, vulnerable and raw and fighting his own demons. "Lao," she whispered. But he turned and walked out of the loft, the door closing with a soft, definitive click that echoed in the sudden silence like a gunshot. The fight was the turning point. The carefully constructed facade of their experiment had shattered, leaving behind the jagged, uncomfortable truth. Leo didn't come home that night. He texted her once. "I'm at a hotel. Need space." The message was a cold stone in her gut. She spent the night curled on the sofa, surrounded by the beautiful, empty loft, drowning in regret. When he returned the next afternoon, the easy camaraderie was gone. A polite, cautious distance settled between them. They were like two diplomats from neighboring countries with a strained treaty. They stopped scheduling date nights. Their conversations became functional, revolving around groceries, bills, and work. Mia threw herself into her art, the canvases becoming darker, more turbulent. Leo buried himself in work, taking on more projects, his side of the loft becoming a sterile, efficient office. Weeks bled into months. The one-year deadline loomed over them, no longer a fun adventure but a grim expiration date. The lowest point came on a rainy Thursday, much like the day he had turned 30. Mia had a breakthrough in her studio, finishing a piece she was genuinely proud of. A painting that was finally neither angry nor confused, but hopeful. A delicate blend of structured lines and wild, free color. It was them, she realized. Or what they could be. She rushed out, wanting to show him, to bridge the chasm that had opened between them. She found him in the living room, on a video call with his brother Mark. He had his back to her, his voice casual. "No, it's fine really," he was saying. "We're just coexisting. The year is almost up. I think we both know how this ends." Mark's tinny voice came through the speakers.
"Mom, I'm sorry."
It was a brave if insane thing to try. Leo laughed, a hollow, tired sound that broke Mia's heart. "Yeah, well, you can't force something that isn't there, right? The pact was a cute idea, but that's all it was. A story. We'll always be best friends, but this marriage thing was a mistake." Mia backed away silently, her heart shattering into a million pieces. A mistake? You can't force something that isn't there. The words echoed in her mind, confirming her deepest fear. He didn't feel it. He never had. She had been a fool to hope. She retreated to her studio, the hopeful painting now seeming like a cruel joke. She didn't confront him. What was the point? The experiment had failed. The data was in. 2 weeks before the 1-year anniversary, Leo found the box. He was looking for a missing file in the back of their shared storage closet when he knocked over an old cardboard box of Mia's things from her New York apartment. Photos and letters spilled out across the floor. Cursing, he knelt to gather them. It was a time capsule of their friendship. Pictures of them at graduation. Arms slung around each other. A ticket stub from a concert they'd gone to senior year. And then he saw it. A familiar, worn-looking notebook. He knew this book. It was Mia's idea journal, where she scribbled concepts for paintings, random thoughts, and he now discovered private musings. A loose, folded sheet of paper fluttered out. It was covered in her distinctive, looping handwriting. He knew he shouldn't read it. It was a violation. But a date at the top caught his eye. It was from 5 years ago. "Saw Leo today. Video call. He looked tired. He's in Seattle, I'm in New York, a whole country between us. And it feels like a universe. He told me about his promotion. I pretended to be happy for him. I am happy for him. But it also feels like he's moving further and further away from the boy he was. From the boy I think about the Pact sometimes. It's my secret comfort. A silly drunken promise that feels like the only thread tethering him to me. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just say the words? Why can't I tell him that he's it for me? That every man I meet is just a placeholder. A shadow I hold up to the light, comparing them to a memory of him. I'm a coward. A proud, stupid coward in love with her best friend." Leo stopped breathing. The words on the page blurred. In love with her best friend. 5 years ago. Long before the pact was invoked. It wasn't a joke to her. It had never been a joke. He kept reading, his heart pounding a frantic, painful rhythm against his ribs. He found another entry, from just a month before their dinner at Angelo's. "The gallery offered me a permanent spot. It's everything I've worked for. But all I can think is, will Leo be there? He's turning 30 soon. The pact. I'm terrified. What if I bring it up and he laughs? What if he's forgotten? What if it meant nothing to him? But what if it meant everything? I have to know. I have to be brave, just this once." He dropped the paper as if it had burned him. The weight of his own blindness came crashing down on him. He saw it all now. Her bravery, her vulnerability, her experiment wasn't a whimsical adventure. It was her last, desperate attempt to make him see what had been in front of him all along. He thought of their fight, her crying for passion, and him, accusing her of wanting a brooding artist, when all she had wanted was him. His heart, fully and completely, without the schedules and the management and the fear. He had been the coward. He had been so terrified of losing her friendship that he had refused to fully step into the marriage. He had held a part of himself back, the messy, passionate, vulnerable part, and in doing so he had confirmed her worst fear, that he didn't feel the same way. He had failed her. Not by being a bad friend, but by being a fearful man. The final night of the one-year pact arrived. The air in the loft was thick with unspoken words. Mia had made dinner, a quiet, somber affair. They ate in near silence, the clinking of cutlery the only sound. Finally, Leo put his fork down. "Mia," he began, his voice rough. "It's okay, Leo," she said, giving him a sad, gentle smile. "You don't have to say it. I know. I was there when you talked to Mark." He froze. "You heard that?" She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes but not falling. "It's okay. Really. You were right. It was a brave, insane thing to try. And we tried. We really did. But you can't force something that isn't there." She was parroting his own words back to him, and each one was a dagger. "That's not true," he said, standing up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "What I said to Mark, that was the biggest lie I've ever told. To him and to myself." Mia looked up, confused. He walked around the table and knelt in front of her chair, taking her hands in his. They were cold. He looked into her eyes, finally allowing every ounce of the love, the fear, the passion, and the desperation he felt to show on his face. "It's here, Mia," he whispered, his voice cracking. "It has always been here. I was just too much of a coward to see it, to feel it, to trust it. I was so busy building a safe, orderly life that I didn't realize the most beautiful thing in it was you. Your chaos, your passion, your messy, glorious, unpredictable soul." A single tear traced a path down her cheek. "Leo." "I love you," he said, the words feeling both foreign and like the most natural truth in the world. "Not just as my best friend. I am in love with you, Mia Finch. I have been for years. I think I fell in love with you the day you challenged that pretentious critic in the gallery. Your hands covered in blue paint. Your eyes blazing with a fire that could power cities. I fell in love with you over cheap pasta and terrible wine, and in 1,000 late-night phone calls. The pact wasn't a joke for me. It was my one desperate hope that you might one day feel the same." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the folded, worn page from her journal. "I found this. I'm sorry I read it. But it made me see. You were the brave one. You always have been." Mia looked at the paper, then back at his face, her eyes wide with shock and dawning hope. "You're it for me, Mia," he continued, his thumb stroking her hands. "Every single part of you. The paint-splattered mess and the brilliant artist. My best friend and the love of my life. This year wasn't a mistake. It was the beginning. Please, don't let our year be the end. Let it be chapter 1. For a long moment, she was silent, just staring at him, as if seeing him for the first time. Then a slow, real, breathtaking smile spread across her face, erasing the sadness, replacing it with a radiant joy. "You alphabetize your spices," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I do," he said, a hopeful smile touching his own lips. "You make schedules for everything. Ido. And you're a beautiful, meticulous weirdo who I am hopelessly, desperately, and completely in love with." She leaned forward, her hands cupping his face, and finally, after a decade of friendship and a year of fear, she kissed him. It wasn't a gentle, friendly kiss. It was a kiss filled with 10 years of pent-up longing, with the relief of truth finally spoken, with a passion that set their carefully constructed world ablaze and promised to build a new, more beautiful one from the ashes. When they finally broke apart, breathless and laughing and crying, Leo rested his forehead against hers. "So," he whispered, "what happens now?" Mia's smile was a promise. "Now," she said, "we start chapter 2. 2 years later. The gallery was packed, a humming hive of chatter and clinking glasses. Mia's solo show, The Decade Pact, was a smash. The centerpiece of the exhibition was a large, stunning diptych. One panel was a meticulously detailed, almost photorealistic painting of a man's hands organizing spices in a pantry, the labels perfectly legible. The other panel was a wild, abstract explosion of color, but if you looked closely, you could see the same hands, the same spices, now flung into the air in a joyful, chaotic dance. The line between the two panels was blurred, the colors from one bleeding beautifully into the other. Leo stood before it, a glass of champagne in his hand, his heart so full he thought it might burst. He wasn't wearing a suit, but he had let Mia pick out his outfit, a deep blue shirt that she said matched his eyes. He felt a warm hand slip into his. He turned to find Mia beside him, her eyes shining with pride and happiness. "It's our best work yet," he whispered, leaning down to kiss her temple. "Our?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "The marriage," he said. "Our greatest collaborative project." She smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I think it's a masterpiece." Across the room, Chloe caught Mia's eye and gave her a triumphant thumbs up. On a video call from Seattle, Leo's brother Mark was toasting them with a beer. Later that night, back in their Chicago loft, which was now a perfect, harmonious blend of order and creative chaos, Leo pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Mia," he said, his voice soft. She turned from the window, the city lights framing her like a halo. "We fulfilled the first pact," he said, opening the box to reveal a simple, elegant diamond ring. "How about we make a new one? A real one. No expiry date." Tears of joy filled her eyes as she held out her hand. "I thought you'd never ask." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, sealing a promise that needed no champagne to give it weight, they both knew this was no experiment. This was the real thing. It had been there all along, waiting for them to be brave enough to claim it.